Hello and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. 12 million poor Nigerian households will receive a transfer of 8,000 naira for a period of 6 months as part of President Bola Tinubu's plans to cushion the effects of fuel subsidy removal. The president made this known in a letter sent to the Senate regarding the $800 million loan request of the Buhari administration for the Social Safety Net program. According to the president, the money transferred to poor households would have a multiplier effect on about 60 million individuals. He added that for credibility, the money will be transferred to the households digitally. Okalu Aja, who is a financial analyst, joins us now for more discussion. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, while the House of Reps approved the President Bola Tinubu's request to source for 500 billion naira from the approved budget to provide palliatives for Nigerians following the removal of petrol subsidy, the Senate made similar approval. The Red Chambers okayed Tinubu's request for the sum of $800 million loan as additional fund for the financing of the National Social Safety Net program set up by the National Assembly. Now, the question is that 500 billion naira and $800 million not far larger than the monies spent on subsidies?
Yeah, well, I mean, the maths is clear, right? That we're seem to be borrowing more to do the subsidy palliatives also. But it's a good point to bring up, Paula, because we have to ask ourselves, what is the 800 billion for? You know, we had this World Bank approval during the past administration, and it wasn't really clear what that money was going to be used for. Was it going to be shared out under the safety net? Was it going to be used to buy, say, buses had been done in the past? So we're not too clear on what that loan is for. And now it's been approved. And like you said, we've also approved the 500 billion plus other stuff on the should we say the palliative package that has been announced. So I would like more information. All we have is the spokesman did like a coming out with the letter and all that. So perhaps when we get more information, we can reach a more conclusive determination on where the money is going to and what is going to be used for directly. But the point has to be made that we have to thoroughly interrogate that, social safety net scheme that was set up in the past administration to make sure that we're actually getting monies across to the real poor people and not just borrowing monies to pay salaries of expensive civil servants.
Now, from the details disclosed, we know that a monthly sum of 8,000 naira will be paid to 12 million poor and low-income households for a period of 6 months. How then do we measure the impact this palliative would have made on the economy? Because, this is not the first time monies will be distributed to poor Nigerians.
Yeah, it's not going to have any impact. That's a short answer. When I saw that headline, I assumed it was a typo or a joke or something, but it's not going to have any impact. So look at it this way. Let me give you the numbers. 60% of Nigeria's GDP is driven by consumption. If you pay 8,000 naira to a family, what are they going to consume? Because if they don't consume, i.e., if they don't buy things, then companies cannot sell. If companies cannot sell, they cannot hire. If they don't hire, then there's more poverty, more unemployment, and really it's like a cycle. So 8,000 is too little to move the consumption needle. It's not going to show up in any indices that you measure. You can say if you go to the village and you give them that they spend less, how much is a liter in the villages? It's even higher than in the cities. So I don't think it's going to show up anywhere. 8,000 and it's just for 6 months. So I'm not really sure, this goes back to your first question. I'm not really sure who this is targeted at and what the intent is to achieve. 8,000 naira could only maybe go for students. Maybe they're just going to eat in school. But to say you want to give a family 8,000 for 6 months, it's not going to have any impact on the economy whatsoever. It's too little.
Now, if these palliatives are going to have little or no impact on the economy, just as you've said, what then is the bigger picture here?
We have to focus on boosting consumption. What has happened in the economy for life is that we increase costs in the economy by more than 300%. And we did that immediately. So the average Nigerian worker has seen all his costs, cost of education, of feeding, of transportation go up, but his wages have been stagnant. So what we need to do immediately is to go and give the average Nigerian worker a boost in income Because when you boost the income, then he can consume. That's the whole idea of the subsidy palliative, a stimulus to boost income so that we can get spending happening at the micro level in Nigeria. We haven't done that with the package that I've seen. Everything we have put in that package is very good, but the timing is off. If you take your kids to the field and you give them 500,000 hectares, how long before they farm and harvest? Well, when will the harvest happen? But they need to eat today. The workers need to go to work and come back today. Guys need to consume today. This is the point. The timing is off. We need immediate subsidies and palliatives to go in to boost consumption of the households in Nigeria. That's what's missing. All the things they've put in that list are very good, but they can't happen in 3 months. You need something to happen immediately. During the COVID, we saw cash being given out by the US government, direct cash. Look at Nigeria. I've seen the NAS, National Assembly, is getting 70 billion. That seems to be like a direct cash injection. The same should happen to the Nigerian households. Look forward to get cash to them immediately. Either you cancel out some taxes so that the income they have then goes up, or you literally give them cash, helicopter money, so that they can spend. Apart from that, I don't think that's going to happen or have an impact. We need the impact now, not in the next 3 months.
Now, while these palliatives are targeted at the vulnerable, the poor and low-income households, what happens to the average Nigerian who, though employed, is most likely underpaid, and inflation has basically even eroded his meager salary? What happens to that group now?
Yeah, I think really for the low income workers, right, the major expense we have is food. So food is about 68% of the average Nigerian household budget. So what we need to focus on that would affect, like your question, both the middle class that is suffering from inflation is food prices. I would rather than giving anyone cash, the government simply says we're going to open up the borders in the next 3 months or the next 6 months, and you can bring in food and pay no duty. That would bring down the cost of food immediately, and that would then reduce inflation immediately. That's going to be a very, very short-term intervention to bring down the cost of food. Whilst the security situation, we've now put food as security, which is very, very good in the plan I saw. So the military guys can go after the bandits, clean up those areas so that farming can restart. But 1 to 3 months, allow food to come to the country at no cost. That's going to be a subsidy for everybody in Nigeria, because food goes down, inflation goes down. So inflation now affects the working class that is worrying about inflation affecting his paycheck. So with that one move, you address both the lower income, the middle income, you address also inflation. Let the food come in 3 months. Let the military go into the hinterland and clear the bandits. Then medium term, we're now talking about this agricultural value chain within the plan, where you want to boost output by employing younger people, giving them fertilizers to go to the hinterland and then farm. Then long term can be now, okay, we want to then build irrigation, the silos and all that. Nobody's going to go to a farm today when we're seeing pictures of people being killed in farms. So we have to fix the security situation first, but we have to then import food short term to get inflation down and allow the macroeconomic equation of Nigeria improve to attract investment. It has to be a plan. We can't do 10 before we do one. And right now, the biggest issue that you mentioned is inflation. And inflation is driven by high food prices in Nigeria. So that has got to be the plan, in my opinion.
So let's talk about accountability and measuring success of previous interventions of government. Take, for instance, the Anchor Borrowers program and the 5,000 naira distributed to poor Nigerians. We really can't say these programs have done much because the number of poor Nigerians keep rising by the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's an issue of trust in the government, and also how the way the government disburses the palliatives or even any loan from the government. If you recall, we had the Anchor Borrower scheme. Great idea. The central bank gives farmers loans below cost of capital. The farmers are able to then produce food and bring down inflation. But if you read the reports, more than 70% of those loans are lost. So when Nigerians see government loans, they look at it as a government grant, as their own share of national cake. They don't pay back. So that is a problem in terms of the psychology of Nigerians, because there's no trust in the government and the governed. But going forward, if we say it's going to be a grant, which means we're giving out cash, I think Nigeria can afford to give out cash to the very, very poor and the very, very vulnerable, and also to the stimulants. The farmers are the stimulants in Nigeria because they can produce food to generate inflation. We can afford to do that. We have got to use technology to do this. We have phones, we have the NIN, we have the BVN. We can have a record that this particular person got this particular amount of money, and we can actually tell where he spent that money. But why don't we do it that way? There seems to be an idea not to make this transparent. We can't pull up the register. There has to be a register of saying, even if it's phone numbers, that these folks as a sample got this amount of money from this department, and this is how it was spent. We can see all that through technology, and this is 2023. So when we hide the technology, it looks to us that we're hiding public funds, and of course, distrust then grows. The past humanitarian ministry was not as open as it should be. So when we hear 800 million from the World Bank, of course, people are skeptical. Where's it going to go to? There is no trust. You can build trust with technology. There's nothing wrong with palliatives. Brazil did it. They tied palliatives to education and to immunization. And I think we've tried some pilot studies in the past, and they've proven successful. We should do it because there are poor people that need help, but we should do it right. If it's going to be a national cake, share it, say it's a national cake, track it and share it, and then go back and measure outcomes and learn from it. Right now, it feels more like a political giveaway. Okay, I'm going to use this money and give to my constituents for next elections. It doesn't look like an economic plan to address poverty.
Finally, before I let you go, I need to get your thoughts on this. This plan has attracted criticism from opponents of the government who believe that this palliative is just an avenue to divert public funds. What are your thoughts on this?
So, I mean, there's some smoke in that fire, right? If you can't, the past humanitarian scheme, I would have expected that before the new president takes on that scheme, he asked it to be audited. Stop it, audit it, then take it over. If you simply assume and start to spend money the same way that scheme was done, of course, you're going to expose yourself to charges that this is just a slush fund. So again, this is not the difficult thing to do. Everyone has got a phone. Everyone should get NIN if you want to get the money. Everyone should get a BVN, and you can track these things. So it's easy, and that charge will stick if there's no accountability. If you want to be accountable, you open up the register. You don't have to open up to the general public. You open up the register to the auditors and say, come and see what we've received and what we have spent. If you don't do that, then people will throw charges at you that this is just corruption, and that charge will stick. So openness, they say sunlight is the best disinfectant. Open up the books, say this is how it's been done in the past, this is how we want to make it better. Then you have a bit of confidence and trust in Nigerian people towards your policies. Trust is lacking. Many policies are good, but people don't trust them. So it appears that this is just my chance to take money and run, even if it's a good policy. So fix the trust, but fix the trust with technology, open up the books, and then when people then accuse you of corruption, you can say, no, this is what we've done, this is what we've done. Till if you ask the new administration now to audit the past humanitarian scheme, can they audit it and take charge or take ownership that whatever they find, if they're going to live with it? So I'm a bit surprised they're going that route and just to adopt that scheme wholesale. I would say pause it, do an audit. If it's fine, continue. If it's not fine, fix it, then go ahead. Otherwise, you're going to expose yourself to charges that is just a slush fund, just like the gentleman you mentioned has said.
Well, Kalu Aja, financial analyst, thank you very much for your time and your contribution.
You're very welcome, Fola. You have a great day.
We'll take a breather now, but Money Matters will be back shortly. To stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Expanding the country's revenue base is one of the critical economic goals of President Bola Tinubu-led administration. To achieve this, the Federal Inland Revenue Service has announced its plan to collect and remit value-added tax from traders, especially those in the informal sector. The agency says this will be achieved in partnership with the Market Traders Association of Nigeria using a unified systems technology. But will taxing the informal sector make a difference in Nigeria's revenue drive? Joining me now to discuss this further is Titilayo Fowokon, the Group Head, Strategic Tax and Compliance, Dangote Industries Limited. Thank you very much for joining us. What do you make of the federal government's plan to collect tax from market traders and the informal sector?
Okay, when I saw that notice, I was having mixed feelings in terms of what is the objective. And I had to go through I think there's about 11 steps or 10 steps of what it is all about. And one of the things that I saw there is more of revenue generation for federal government, because VAT is a federal tax and the market traders are in the informal sector. They are more under the jurisdiction of the state. One of the things I saw there is more of using digital app or so to get their turnover and then also be able to assess VAT. And there are also areas around, they may be under 25 million. The VAT Act is very clear that when you're a small company and you have turnover below 25 million, you don't have a VAT obligation. Also things around what is the category, what are the categories of these market traders? Some deal in goods that are VAT exempt, like basic food items. Some they deal in goods that are maybe exported. Those are exempted also. So we are not so sure about what are these categories of traders they're looking at. Are they within this 25 million threshold? Is it really going to be a VAT? Because VAT is value added tax. So, and it's actually value along the value chain of production. When you pay VAT on your input, which is cost of what you buy, then you now charge VAT on what you sell. It is the difference between the two that you remit to the government. So we're not so clear about how VAT will work in this circumstance. So there's still quite a lot of clarity that needs to be made on this, because we're looking at jurisdiction of the state versus the federal versus the threshold, and also some items that should not ordinarily be vatable.
Now, do you think this new policy will put more strain on the informal sector?
I would say it will, because what that means is that more of them will now be within the federal tax net. And once they come within the tax net, they will now have obligations. You know, tax is not just for you to know, it's for you to know and to act on what you know. Once they come in, through this, they can now come under the purview of the state tax authorities. And that means obligation will not only be for VAT, it can be shared with other states. And once they are shared with others, it means that the issue of income tax will come in. And mind you, the 25 million threshold is mainly for limited liability companies. We have anyone that will be in this informal sector. If you are not a limited liability company or running your business as a limited liability company, then you are going to be like a self-employed. If you are self-employed, then you are under the state. And the law that will apply to you be the personal income tax law that will tax your income, not separating it from the business and the owner are the same. So they're going to have a lot of obligations, a lot of tax responsibilities which they need to be doing so that they can keep the pace. That's why I said the way this will run, we are still trying to understand, because I hear they will upload their turnover on an app, and that app will calculate the VAT, and the VAT will be remitted. I really don't know how that will work, because we're talking about 40 million traders. If that is true, how many of them will be uploading their turnover? Can they even determine the correct turnover? People just do estimate. Go to the markets, they just have an idea. Level of literacy is still there. They are not that literate to understand how this app works. Is it going to be using their phone? How will it work? You know, things like that. And tax is not as, VAT is not like that straightforward because of the way it's applied here in the country. So we still have quite a lot of gray areas which we feel needs to be clarified so that the traders are well informed. Because once you're inside the tax net, you can't run out. You have to start to comply. And there are a lot of compliance obligations. There are penalties. In fact, VAT penalty is stiff. And other aspects of laws, taxes are now with penalties that once you default, the penalty crystallizes. So they need to understand all this. And I'm sure once the traders understand what this means, they know there's additional responsibilities for them to comply with whatever the law says.
Now, one of the key objectives of the policy is to raise revenue for the government. How practicable is this? And do you think the Market Association will be able to achieve the drive?
Well, I would say that because we have not really looked into detail as to how they want to achieve that, we cannot at this moment be saying they may not be able to. We are always optimistic that this will help. Let's be sincere with ourselves. Quite a number of people that are not in the tax net will come in, and I'm very sure there'll be people that are above the 25 million threshold that are using corporate names that would come in. They may not get up to what is expected, but they'll be able to bring people in. But the only thing is that as the revenue is being generated, then the market traders are very sure they start asking a question. Oh, you told us to pay, they have paid, and we have not seen the benefit. So there will now come another song of what is the benefit of what we're paying. So as we get them to pay, there's a lot of responsibility also for government to ensure that at least they can be confident that whatever they are paying is being used for them, is being used for the citizens, and they'll be willing. I always tell people that voluntary compliance is the best. Once you comply, you will sleep well. Once you don't comply, you'll now be afraid of the taxman, afraid of penalty, afraid of your account being frozen, afraid of your office being sealed up because you've not done the right thing. So they will get the revenue from this, but the question is it the right amount of tax to be paid? That will now require some enlightenment so that in generating revenue, we are not over collected. We are collecting the right amount of tax from the right set of people.
Well, Titilayo Fowoko, Group Head, Strategic Tax and Compliance, Dangote Industries Limited, thank you very much for your insight. And it's a wrap on the program. Thank you for watching. See you again next time. Bye-bye.